DeRoche, the president and CEO of the Family Policy Alliance. It's great to be with you. And I want to encourage you all to share, like, comment on this video, share it with your friends. This is a very important case we're talking about. We've got an amazing guest with us to talk about what we are doing in the pro-family movement to stand up for religious liberty, our right to pray. Many of you see the other video that we had with a coach named Coach Kennedy from the state of Washington, who dared to pray by himself privately at the 50-yard line. He was a coach of a football team, and he was fired from his job for observing privately his own religious faith. That case has made its way to the Supreme Court, as it well should have, with the question of whether or not the First Amendment applies here. Folks, we want you to check out that video. We want to thank you for your support. We had the Pray 50. A lot of you went to the 50-yard lines and prayed yourself over this weekend before the Supreme Court hearings on Monday, April 25th. That was a nationwide effort. We want to thank you for your participation in that. It made a difference. And we wanted to talk a little bit more about this because this has a lot to do with who we are, not just us as Christians, but for every faith in America, and for America, what type of country we are as well. And so we brought in Randy Wenger, who is the chief counsel for the Independence Law Center in Pennsylvania. And he is also the chief operating officer of the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Now, understand the Pennsylvania Family Institute is what we call a Family Policy Council. There are 40 of these in the country, just wonderful organizations that lead at the front lines. These are the people, if you want to know, how do I get it done? If you live in Pennsylvania, we want you plugged in. We want you working with the Pennsylvania Family Institute and their Independence Law Center, where Randy is a leader. This guy has argued successfully a case alongside Hobby Lobby he was involved in all the way to the Supreme Court. And Randy has led an effort, check this out, to in the Coach Kennedy case with our friends at First Liberty, said, what if we write an amicus brief? What if we write a brief to the Supreme Court saying what we think is at stake? That takes a lot of legal knowledge to do that. And his brief was so well written and so powerful. Nearly 30 state organizations joined Randy and the Pennsylvania Family Institute in this effort. We're going to talk about why that was done and the impact that it has. But first, let's invite Randy into the show. Randy, it's great to be with you, and it's a real privilege to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So you've got a big job, and you're keeping pretty busy here. And I think it's for a good reason. I think there's a lot at stake. But tell our audience what is at stake in this case, the Kennedy case before the Supreme Court, where there were hearings this very week while this video is being shot.
Yeah, religious liberty is at stake here, and I think Christians understand this intuitively, and it's not simply about somebody exercising their religious faith. It is that, but it's the idea that certain kinds of expression should be completely eliminated because it's not fit for public consumption, and that's kind of the tone that we've seen in a lot of Establishment Clause jurisprudence over many, many decades now, where religion alone is treated as a poison or as an asbestos that needs to be remediated from schools. And the question here is whether a coach, but this could apply to other government employees, whether they need to completely hide their faith, or whether some amount of expression that clearly is not school expression can be permitted. And in a free society, we really ought to permit that kind of thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have my own crazy theory, and you're a lot smarter than me when it comes to law. But I'm one of these people that would tell you can't remove religion from schools and government. Religion is something that human beings do all day, every day. And all you've done is replace it with a state version of a religion when you've chased out the others. But we don't have to unpack, peel back that onion here today, Randy.
I'd love to peel back that onion today.
What's that?
I'd love to peel back the onion because and I'll just comment very briefly that's really at the heart of some of these issues where there are a lot of people who look at something like this and say, hey, we just need neutrality toward religion. Like, well, okay, Um, what does that look like? Neutrality toward religion looks a whole lot like singling out religion for adverse treatment, and people can express up and down, day and night, who they are on any other issue. But when it comes to religion, somehow we're supposed to keep that out, and that's not, like you said, that's not really how people work. Instead, it seems like we're trying to replace any kind of religious tradition or religious speech with something that is non-religious.
Yeah, and that was my next question for you is because I think that's what's at stake here. This is really where we're getting down to a big case with its own facts and everything else, but it gets down to like a really small and important thing that America was founded, and our First Amendment says it's essentially trying to protect us to say that you're free to think what you want to think. And our government, unfortunately, am I being grandiose of saying, no, we're entering a phase of American whatever progression of as a culture and the experiment in democracy where you can't think what you want to think. The government has a vested interest in correcting it. The coach can't pray by himself to his personal relationship with Jesus Christ. The government has a stake in preventing that. Is it grandiose, or is that actually what we're talking about here in this case?
I think there are a lot of people who who would like to be taking it to the place that you're talking about, where we can't even think that 2 + 2 = 4, in reference to 1984. But there are a lot of folks out there too that I think have this mistaken notion that we can take some controversial subjects like religion and put them in a shelf somehow, and then thereby create this neutrality when really it's completely inconsistent with the way that that we interact with other issues. And so you think about a school setting, and you think about the way that that the court's been talking about the Establishment Clause for the past 70 years or so. And the court, in taking prayer out of school and in taking Bible reading out of school, said, look, there's certain issues that are deeply personal. They can be controversial. These are issues that ought to be taught at home. And so we're going to keep the school out of this so that we're not undermining the ability of families to be able to teach what they want on their own. And in theory, that makes sense. In practice, that's not the way this stuff works out, right? Because what we find is we can look at issues from all kinds of viewpoints. Think of the kinds of things that are making parents rightfully insane right now when they find out that their kids are dealing with everything from LGBT issues, CRT, and socialism, Marxism being pushed in the classroom. Religion, however, is too controversial, and that's something that needs to stay out of school. Well, the only thing that you've really communicated at that point is that religion is disfavored and any other idea is favored. So that really goes to the heart of what we were trying to address in the brief that we wrote. That
Absolutely.
inconsistency, the schizophrenia that we've now seen in the way that we address these issues.
Well, we want everybody to look at the brief. And if you've just joined us, we want you to continue watching this video. We've got a great guest, Randy Wenger, Chief Counsel of Independence Law Center and Chief Operating Officer of the Pennsylvania Family Policy Council. And he wrote a brief on the Coach Kennedy case that the Supreme Court heard this week, the week of April 24th, 2022, long awaited showdown over our religious liberties in America. And Randy's one of the legal minds that has been involved in this. And I want to talk about the brief itself, but I'm more interested in getting the gossipy side of this for our audience here. Randy, first, what happened in the courtroom? We can't flip the channels and see the video at our Supreme Court. So can you clue our audience in what went down in there?
Well, we knew going in that there were at least 4 sympathetic justices, Justice Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Alito, and Thomas had at one point or another stated things that indicated that they wanted to hear this this case and thought that things were amiss in the way that the lower court, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, dealt with this case. So we knew that we needed to get one more in the courtroom, and I think that one more in the courtroom was Justice Barrett, because as she was looking at this case, and the kinds of questions that she was asking seemed to suggest that she bought the idea that what Coach Kennedy was doing there at the 50-yard line was not some kind of government speech, but was personal speech, and that personal speech really ought to be allowed. I mean, we're not talking about a teacher in the classroom leading the children in a prayer to the Lord or in a prayer to Allah. What we're talking about is a coach at the 50-yard line praying by himself initially until students came up to him and asked, "Hey, coach, what are you doing?" "Well, I'm praying." "Well, can we join you?" "It's a free country. You can do what you want," was his response. And then the question becomes, is it actually a free country? Can they do what they want? Because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals seemed to be suggesting that it's really bad if students are participating in this, where it really is a free country. Students ought to be free to pray. And in a context like this, it's not a coercive environment. So that's what a lot of the justices seem to be concerned about, not the old tests that we used for Establishment Clause for years and years and years, but they seem to be moving in a new direction and just saying, look, is this coercive? And some of the more liberal justices, yeah, they probably thought it was coercive. It's not, but they probably thought it was. Justice Barrett didn't seem to be buying that argument.
Well, that is good news. That's encouraging news, folks. We'll expect a result from this. Usually in this term, they'll report back in. It won't be immediate, but there's some confidence coming out of the oral arguments, right, Randy? That there's a potential for us to gain some ground for religious liberty in America with this ruling.
Yeah, and we've been gaining a lot of ground for religious liberty over the years. And in fact, last term, there was a case dealing with Catholic social services in Philadelphia. And the question was whether Catholic social services could continue to place children for adoption and foster care in that city, even though based on Catholic teaching, they believe marriage is between a man and a woman, and they're not going to place children in homes headed by a same-sex couple. And the Supreme Court unanimously allowed them to do it. So it was a very significant religious liberty case. And it was a unanimous religious liberty case where we're seeing the court beginning to turn the corner on some of these issues and recognize issues of fairness in new ways. So I was encouraged there, and I was really encouraged by the argument, and I expect to see a good opinion, even though there were some questions that did show that there are some justices out there that didn't quite seem to understand religious liberty in the same way that we do, like Justice Sotomayor asking, "So I don't know of any religion that requires somebody to pray at the 50-yard line." Like, well, no, but that's not the point. It's not.
I know she's still looking for who's in charge of this, right? So we can regulate it and do it down. Like religious liberty has to be done by who's ever a pope somewhere or whoever your head of thing gives you instructions. It's really a kind of a statist approach to thinking through that. My gosh, religion, maybe it's a relationship between a person and God. She'd never heard of that. And she's on the Supreme Court.
And religious liberty tends to be such it's a subjective thing. And if we want religious liberty to work, we need to protect people's ability to follow their convictions, not just be able to follow some doctrinal statement somewhere, because that's really what has historically got Europe and even the early colonies in trouble. Because we said, well, I don't agree with that person's religious exercise. I wouldn't do that. Well, that's not the point of freedom. Whether you're dealing with freedom of speech, where I may not agree with what the person next to me is saying, but I'm sure going to defend his right to be able to say it. The same thing is true with religious liberty. We need to protect somebody's ability to follow their conscience, not be able to say, I think the line drawing that they did in following their conscience is wrong. I would have done that myself. Like, that's not religious liberty. That's just trying to supplant your own judgment for somebody else's judgment. But American law, our Constitution does better than that. And that's one of the things that has for so long preserved liberty in this country, and what sets us apart from a lot of those totalitarian states that we see right now.
Well, amen to that. So, just really briefly on the brief itself, there were, I think, 29 state organizations. Folks, the Family Policy Council Alliance, where Pennsylvania Family Institute is one of the members. This is a unique, just this amazing blessing in America of these wonderful organizations. The Pennsylvania Family Institute has its own building right near the Capitol. They've got some of the sharpest staff people and the most motivated volunteers and advocates that you want to see in America, and that's being replicated in other states, in 40 states in America. We want to get to 50. Reach out to us if your state is missing. We'll put a link up, but it's really the showpiece of the pro-family social conservative movement in America is the infrastructure of these state organizations like the Pennsylvania Family Institute. So tell us a little bit, Randy, about your organization and how you line up with your peers, and how people can help you and find out what you're up to at Pennsylvania Family Institute.
Hey, sure. Pennsylvania Family Institute was established more than 30 years ago, and we're involved with a lot here in the state of Pennsylvania. So you've heard a little bit that we've got a legal department. And so our legal department has been involved in all kinds of issues. Right now, one of the front burner issues is helping parents and helping school boards try to navigate the crazy land that we're dealing with right now. So we're representing school boards. We're giving advice to school board members how to deal with issues like girls' sports, how to deal with locker room privacy or curriculum issues, the books that are showing up in libraries, how to do that in a constitutionally defensible way so that schools can really engage in what they ought to be engaging in. So we're dealing with things legally. We're also working in the state legislature to try to get good policies passed and bad policies stopped. So we've got a team of 14. And I'm just really proud of the team. We get a lot done with the size of the operation here in Pennsylvania. So if people want to find out more, just Google pafamily.org, and you can hear a lot more about our organization.
Well, thank you for that, Randy. And we like to leave our guests when we have these conversations with some encouragement. We've never had, and I'm sure this is true of the Pennsylvania Family Institute, more engagement than we've had over the last couple of years. The issues have been crystallized. The enemy is at work all day, every day, undermining. And when the enemy, I'm talking about the evil one here. This is a ministry that we're talking about. I don't consider people that have political opinions differently than me my enemy, but the evil one who undermines a lot and does not like America and sees America and our freedoms as a threat. And he's very busy right now. And so what encouragement do you have for not only the folks in Pennsylvania that are listening to us today, but the people all over the country and really the world that tune into these things and watch of why we do the work we do at Pennsylvania Family Institute, Family Policy Alliance, and so many other organizations in America?
The reason we do what we do is because it makes a difference. So it's worth investing in, whether it's in the state of Pennsylvania or our sister organizations or the Family Policy Alliance. It makes a difference. We have seen that time and again, being told that this particular law that's going to affect religious liberty and bathroom privacy, it's inevitable. Just get over it. It's going to pass this session. And now we're looking at that. 6 years ago, it hasn't become law, and we're still successfully fighting against that, to areas where we're making headway. And go no further than thinking about a lot of the issues that have been problematic issues in schools for years. And with intervening elections and different school boards being elected, now school boards are wanting to work with us to be able to fix the wrongs that we've all been hearing about over the past 2 years. So as we're looking at that, and those are just two very small examples, winning in court, winning in the legislature, winning elections, and moving the ball when it comes to where we're at on a lot of these issues. Now, we got a long way to go, but we've seen these problems that people are now understanding. We've seen them for years in the making. Now we're beginning to see the corner being turned on a lot of these issues. And I just want to make sure that the people who are listening realize that there may be a little bit of lag when it comes to fixing everything, but we're fixing things, and I'm really bullish for our future. So hang in there, don't lose hope based on the latest headline that you hear, because ultimately the thing that gives me the most hope is God's at work. So if we can remain faithful as organizations, we can just be a conduit for what God is doing. That's why we exist.
Well, amen, brother. It's been a real privilege having you on with us. Folks, Randy Wenger at the Pennsylvania Family Institute, the Independence Law Center, great legal mind. He is leading the charge for us Christians. He's helping us mobilize across the family policy councils throughout America, Family Policy Alliance. We're privileged to follow your lead. Sign on to the brief that you submitted to the Supreme Court that they'll get a chance to review in their decision. We know that informs the Supreme Court. And just really appreciate your leadership on this and your encouragement at the end, because I'm with you. I think that this is the beginning of where we're starting to gain ground. And I love different arguments that the left is making and laying it down in their words. And I pray in their dissent too, where they talk about coercion, because what do they think the LGBTQ and other agendas that they do, not at the 50-yard line on a Friday night after a game, but in
every day in school,
single class and every break and every advertisement and the placemats in the lunchroom and the indoctrination that they try to do. So we're just getting started with these conversations, and we can gain a lot of ground. Thank you so much for being with us, Randy. If you've been with us, please like, share, comment on this video, and look at the Coach Kennedy video as well. Thank you again, Randy. God bless, and we'll talk to you real soon.